Hello, so week 14 results going into the playoffs, and then obviously playoffs for us is week 15. Hopefully you're at that stage already and you got in the playoffs. Let's see how I did. It was a game where it didn't matter if I lost or won. I pretty much secured my spot into the playoffs, but I don't know how I'm going to do moving forward, so let's discuss that in this, and let's have a roundup of who else made it into the playoffs. Oh, what a week for your for my team in particularly falling apart. 113 to 81, which I think is was the third lowest score of the week. But incredibly, a really low scoring week across the board for every team. I think everyone missed what they were predicted to get. But let's have a look and see how it's gone, and let's have a think of how it's going to help me or not help me in the playoffs. So, we've got a little bit of a superstar with Purdy. 21 points, really unexpected. Bit of a gamble for the Trump, but he needed it. A good quarterback coming in after losing Trevor Lawrence at the start. Then he lost Lamar, and he lost Jimmy G as well. So he is on his third string quarterback, which is slightly ironic that it's being Purdy for the 49ers, who is their third string quarterback as well. For me, Joe Burrow, getting a solid 16, I really hope that he can carry me through the playoffs, and I need the help as well. And Pierce, 11 points. Worried for him moving forward if he's going to get the points. But a consistent 10 always makes him a starter. He's getting the volume, so I think it's hard pressed not to start him week by week, especially going forward. He was against Dallas, after all, who are incredibly good at the run game, run defense. Nick Chubb, only 8 points. He has gone down drastically in the last 3 weeks. Come on, Browns. I need you to get 20 points this week. Along with others, to be honest. Joe Mixon, 12 points, coming back. Hopefully get some more valuable points going forward. I think he's going from strength to strength with the amount of injuries in Bengals in a moment. Wide receiver options aren't really there other than Chase, so going forward. Jordan Madison, only played him because I needed some running back in there, and I really didn't know who else to do because two of my running backs were on buys. So it is what it is. Was a buy hell week. Gabe Davis, he's starting to concern me going forward, and he is a flex play at best. At the moment, he is just not getting the volume consistency, and with the bad weather coming up for playoffs, I think it's going to be really hard push to get more than 10 points. For me, he's a non-starter going forward. Debo Samuel gets good 14 points, then comes off with a bad, what was expected knee injury, now ankle. He could be expected at the end of the playoffs, but if you're worried about him, he is pretty much gone for the season unless you can make it to the end, in my opinion. But even then, coming back from it, I don't know. For fantasy terms, for game and NFL terms, he'll be back in about 3-4 weeks, and he'll be a great player going forward still. What does open up is Brian Ayuk becomes the main wide receiver for Purdy, and they seem to have a really good connection moving forward, so we'll see how that goes. Tyler Boyd broke his thumb. He is day by day. He was a flex at best, and now with an injury, don't know what's happening. T. Higgins out actually gives Taylor Boyd some value, but he's injured now, so that value has pretty much disappeared. Mark Andrews, well, without Lamar there, he is not being looked at and not getting the volume. Dalton Schultz having a great game at 15 points. I need that carrying forward, going forward into the playoffs. And then Thielen actually starting to be looked at in the end zone and has a great upside. A low floor most times, but good upside going forward. Andrew Hopkins, with Murray now injured, has been a quarterback hell season for quite a lot of big quarterback names just getting injured. He is their main wide receiver. He is almost one of their only options. Is he going to get the volume? It's going to be hard to tell moving forward. Mike Williams coming back from injury, and he seems to be running and catching what you would expect from the start of the season. At 23 points, really good. Carr, what is going on? He had an awful game. That is not something you want in the Superflex League. That can lose you a game. Luckily for me, my points were so low that it didn't matter this time, but other players definitely lost me. Going forward, Dallas Cowboys, only 4 points. You sort of expected more against Houston, but actually Texans really pulled off a great and almost close win as well. But Dallas just pushing off at the end. 49ers, hope big things going forward. On the bench, even when Mixon involved, P9 still 10 points. I think that can be a split going forward as a sort of committee with the amount of wide receivers that are out. On my bench, everyone was pretty much on bye, so there was really no choice. Big players I'm hoping to come back is obviously Jonathan Taylor. Come on, this is your time to go stardom. And Brian Robson as well, hoping for a little bit, really big upside. He's getting the volume, just needs a couple of touchdowns in there, and he'll be a good play going forward. Need to start both next week. On the other side, 91 points to 114. Josh Allen getting 19 points below as predicted, but having a great game. Jalen Hurts, what a great game, 29 points, and I am playing against Badlands in the final. I do have a 4-point home advantage, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Might be enough if they play like this, but I don't think it's going to happen. Saquon Barkley, only 6 points. There could be a downhill. He is on a downhill trend at the moment. Austin Eckler, 23 points. Miami just wasn't being able to hold him off, and I think going forward, he is a clear options as well. Rashawn White, 12 points is really good there. There is a committee with and Fournette a little bit injured, so he's gonna get plenty of opportunity. Just keep out on the injury reports on him moving forward. Kareem Hunt getting some action, but let's be honest, it's just Chubb or no one in the running back, and even that, Chubb has not getting enough volume. Chris Godwin, 10 points. He is doing really well considering how badly Tampa Bay performed, almost whitewashed by the 49ers. Stephon Diggs, you don't expect 6 points, and going forward you're going to start him with no problem, but there is weather conditions in there, but that does lead a potential for huge upside for him as well. Brown, 12 points. He has the ability to get a lot more moving forward. I would expect to as well. Garrett Wilson, I think there's a diamond in the rough in the Jets team, but it really depends on which quarterback plays. Is it Fecco? That's not the right term, but you know what I mean. Or White, then brilliant. Even though White is put himself through hell and back twice over in that match. If it's Wilson, on the other hand, then I think the potential of Garrett Wilson goes down. So it's key to keep an eye out on that, who plays. Gerald Everett, only 7 points. Not bad for a tight end, but moving forward you need something higher. TJ Hopkins, 11 points, and next week on week 15 I expect a big game from him, so watch out there. T. Higgins played 1 snap, got taken off the injury report of Bengals, and we thought everything was fine. No, no, not fine at all. Don't do that to us from fantasy. Tell us what's going on so we can know. DK Metcalf, 18 points, doing well, but against 49ers next week, I would expect more the round mid-teens rather than high teens going forward on that. The Prescott, only fair, well, he was, to be fair, 15 points for me predicted was a was a low prediction considering they were against Houston Texans, but actually Houston Texans really did step up and only 13 points held in that. Kenny Pickett only 1 point going forwards. You just don't know what's happening there at the moment. Chiefs 15 points and Bills 11. Really good points on that. Person on the bench who had a game and a half, Jerry Jeudy, 33 points, scoring 3 touchdowns, and pretty much was the passion all the way through that team. Really good for him. Next, Birds and Hitman, 80 points and 77. The only 2 teams that I would have won, and they played against each other. Good and close contest. Both Birds, unfortunately, even with the win, are not in the playoffs. Hitman again, the last spot, and he's playing against Arnold Trump. But we'll do a roundup on that as well going forward. Tannehill playing great. Tua not. That's pretty much the opposite stories there. Going forward, you'd expect Tua to actually start to step up, and Ryan Tannehill to be a little bit lower on production. James Hook, well, his just running game isn't there for Buffalo. He is a backup, and even running backs are a backup to Josh Allen anyway. Derek Henry, 20 points. He is just a complete offense there. He is doing fantastically. Gerald Williams, without the upside of touchdowns, he is non-existent. And you normally expect some touchdowns from a high-scoring game. Moving forward, you would expect a low floor, but you'd expect at least 10 to 15 points because of the touchdown upside. Travis Homer stepping in for Walker, who should be back next week. Wasn't particularly well, to be fair. Tyreek Hill, 24 points, doing great for Miami. He's always getting targeted, which is what you expect. AJ Brown, he's just working so well with Hurts at the moment. There's always that risk factor that suddenly they're not going to get anything, because he is sometimes touchdown dependent, or at least big play dependent. But because of the offense and the amount of dangers at the Eagles, you're expecting that on week by week. They're always going to open up to him. Terrace Marshall, only 2 points, really just non-existent wide receivers at Carolina Panthers. It's not worth playing going forward. But this was bye hell week, so fill where you could. There is only 6 points, pretty much the same for Marshall as well. Tyler Copkin, 7 points, respectable, and I think going forward you sort of expect sort of that 7 to 10 points, hoping for him to fall over into touchdown as well. Austin Hooper, pretty much the same in Tennessee, getting some looks, pretty good for him. Van Jefferson, interesting player, because Coop is out. Expect this type of volume again, and you hope that he can get some end zone looks as well. Michael Gallup, not really getting looked in. He's a non-starter for me each week. Mike White, he's okay. He's done all right, you know, but I think he adds more value to his wide receivers than anyone else in that team. But it'll be interesting to see if he carries on with the amount of hurt he got. And then Taylor Huntley cheering for Lamar. He's not going to get Lamar points, so he's a non-starter QB for me. Steelers 3, and Bucks had an awful game. Pretty much nothing from him. What's interesting on the benches, obviously a lot of buys, but Zunion Knight only 15 points. And for him stepping in as wide receiver, running back, I think he is a good contender for a week by week start. Tampa in, and it's been the story of Ryan Lovers. If he was playing other people, we would have got a score. He's getting high scores, Tony, or high-ish compared to what other players are getting, but he's always against someone who just scores out a little bit more. As he going forward, having to take a massive blow with Murray going out. He's now out for the season. Geno Smith, 20 points, doing exceptionally well. Christian Christian McCaffrey, he is the running back there, and he is getting a lot with Deebo Samuel going out. I think they're going to rely on him even more, so expect higher points going forward. I think 20 plus points is almost what you expect. Andrew Smith, Andrew Swift, only 6 points, considering how much of a high scoring game it was. There wasn't really much action in the running game, but it is a committee there, so hopefully you're picking the one that's going to get the touchdown. And Josh Jacobs, theory, a quiet game for him. Only 18 points, but they rely on the run game, and when Las Vegas they do well, and he is getting gaps and he is getting touchdowns, so going forward you will expect a good upside for him. Another person who's sort of breaking it back in at the moment is Ezekiel Elliott, coming off with some injuries, and he is okay now. They have a really good run game there, and I think even though on paper Elliott isn't the main wide running back, I think Pollard actually has the better fantasy value. CeeDee Lamb, nothing but disappointment for you. The whole wide receiver game is a little bit disappointing for Dallas. Kieran Allen, I actually have him ranked wide receiver 4 this week at week 15. I think he's really come back, and he is doing exceptionally well moving forward. And in Cooper, well, until Browns actually get a little bit more passing game, and don't rely on their defense to win the games, we'll see what's going to happen there. Josh Palmer is a good fill-in. You hope to get more than 10 points for him, but 9's respectable. TJ Higbee, only 3 points. Yeah, it's tight ends. Every tight end had a rubbish week this week. Apart from Ingram, which no one ever has on their bench, on their team anyway. Greg, only 7 points. Okay, there's not much there. Marcus Brown just not getting enough volume in the team at the moment, and still obviously coming back from injuries, and still has some niggling ones there as well. Fortman, you expected more, but 8 points. It's okay. You want the 10 with a touchdown on there. Hopefully getting the 16 next week. Jared Goff having a great game. I think Lions are actually really respectable as an offense. Just that defense is so bad that the offense has to go out and throw the ball a lot, and do a lot with it just to stay in the game. And Tom Brady, arguably having his worst game of the year. Is he going to bounce back? I think so. 49ers have a great defense, and they read him all over the place. Raiders only 9 points, and Cardinals 3 points. Could anything have changed those 3 points in the score? Well, Zay Jones at 21 points and Jeremy McGannon at 32 points, and even Smith 17 points could have made him win by a lot more. Myself, I would have put Palmer out and Jones, because Jones seemed to be the main wide receiver that's being looked at for volume at the moment, which, considering that you got Amari Cooper there, is strange, but he seems to be the favourite wide receiver at the moment. I would have got him win, but wouldn't have got him in the playoffs. Going forward with Zay Jones, he is a star every week. Again, it's hard to predict who's going to be the main one, but he had a great game. He was all over the place. And Raiders 114 points to Chicago 117, which was a must win for Raiders. But I think he is still in, because of the draw. I think that's how it works so far. On his team, he's got Holmes, always going to get you solid score, but Trevor Lawrence coming into it, and I think actually going forward, I got him as a QB5 at the moment, so he's doing exceptionally well. Wish I traded him for Carl when I was given the option. That was me being silly. Mike Sanders had a great game. He was getting a lot of volume, and a run game in Philly is come along, and Sanders is becoming a real good asset. Najee Harris eventually getting more than 10 points. Don't expect much more from that because the O-line is so bad in Pittsburgh, unfortunately. It's hard to see if he's going to keep getting higher upside than that week by week, but a safe floor because he's getting the volume. This is Murray, only getting 6 points. He's just not really getting the volume there, and then they're a little bit shut out of the run area. Mustard again, equally the same. Their running game is just not there, and it was a bit game for Miami all over. Jamar Chase doing great, coming back at 27 points. He is doing exceptionally well. And now with Higgins and Boyd possibly out, definitely Higgins could be out as well for longer weeks. Chase is their main and really only option, and he is fully capable of getting out of double coverage. Equally same is Adams. He is the only wide receiver that's going to get any balls from Las Vegas and Carr, but unfortunately it was a low scoring game. You almost want them to be trailing, so they're forced to go long or play quickly to get the wide receivers in the action. Go forward, he's a starter every time. DJ Moore, 0 points. He just wasn't playing, injured. So this is what it is. It doesn't get looked at the moment when he's there. Tyler Lockett, 18 points. Really good week for him. I think he could be shut out quite a lot playing against 49ers next week. Pate Freeman, 12 points. Doing really well as a tight end. He is a start every week, and I think he's got a real good potential for you going into playoffs. George Kittle, bad game, but going forward with Debo out, he is going to get more looks and he's going to be given bigger opportunities. Cam Akers, it's not what you wanted at the start of the season. Is it what it wanted at the end of the season? No, he's still not getting the volume, and they're still not running the game well there, unfortunately. James Conner doing exceptionally well going forward. He's got some really good potential going through the playoffs as a really big threat. He's always going to get some passes, but he's got the upside of touchdowns and good runs as well. Sam Darnold is a bad quarterback in fantasy. He's not passing well, and there's not enough people around him. I don't think he has enough weapons either, but we'll see what it's like going forward. To me, I wouldn't start him. Someone I would think about starting is Daniel Jones going forward. 18 points, very respectable as a wide quarterback, and potentially always has that little sneak of a touchdown of running upside, which is a good safe floor for him. Seahawks 1 point and Broncos 4 points respectable. Anything on the bench that would have changed anything? No, unfortunately, unless you play. I don't know why he had I was going to say no, but actually, why Dobbins on the bench? 18 points. Who would you put him in place of? Gamakis or Murray? Yeah, would have got you quite a lot of points. Yeah, going forward, even though Dobbins has got that little concern on his knee, he's still very well as a respectable player to start. And the final team has the best record so far at 12-2, but I think it's going to struggle with some players and coming against a little bit more tougher competition going forward, as his team's a little bit dropping where it needs to be, but he's got some big upsides on there as well. It's keeping him in the game. Christian Kirk is doing exceptionally well and is finding everything he can when it comes to Justin Jefferson, which is actually his stack as well. Russell Wilson, he's like the villain of the story that suddenly turns good and then becomes a villain again, where you're just like, you don't want him to do well because he's so bad, and then he starts doing well and you're sort of cheering him on just as you're going, yeah, do you know what, he could actually do this, he could do this, and gets absolutely conked on the head. Now in concussion protocols, I don't think he'll start this week. Keep out for that injury report, especially if all the concussions are going out. It was definitely a big head injury, and then obviously they got dominated after that and they couldn't perform as they had a step-in quarterback. But it's a shame, because it could have been that week that turned everyone around to start liking him. Unfortunately, he got injured, and it's one of those things. Don't go for the sneaky gang, Wilson. Travis Etienne, only 3 points, and I think he's trending down, in my opinion. It's something to watch out for going forward. I think you need to look at your matchups quite well. Someone else he's also disappointed, but pretty much the whole season is Cook. Could that change? I don't think so. I think they're relying too much on the passing game that Cook doesn't even get a look in, even when they're leading, unfortunately. Stevenson is injured, is questionable to come back, and so is Harris as well. It's worth looking on your waiver wire, see if Harris is there, because if he is, he could be a good running back to start. But it's all questionable and all up in the air. It'll be interesting, so just keep an eye on that. Tony Pollard, only 22 points. Say, actually, how is this committee doing so well? Both are getting volume, both are getting touchdowns, both are getting passes, and they're both doing exceptionally well. And they're the only team I'd happily rely on a committee, and both, if you drafted them, you got a good draft pick considering how low they were in the draft. Justice Jefferson, 33 points, really smashing it. Going forward, he is always going to be a star every week, and potentially can be your game winners as well. Christian Kirk has potential to be a game winner if he can get that volume, but only 9 points isn't good enough. He needs everything else going for him. Who else? Someone who should be doing well, Jalen Waddle, but at the moment it's just not being looked at. Everything is going to Hill, and it's not really mixing as much. It's one of those people you can't afford to drop or bench. Unfortunately, it can lose you a game if he doesn't perform, so it's something to bear in mind going forward. Corey Davis, he's just not getting the looks. It's just not volume there at the moment, with Garrett Wilson getting it instead. Travis Kelce, arguably a quiet day for him at 11 points, but for tight end terms, it's still really good. Another tight end that has going forward really good potential, especially with the wide receivers out, is David at 18 points, and actually I would expect that solid 15 points going forward every week from him. Mike Evans, well, it was just bad for a week. At Tampa Bay, 9 points, at least he got 9. Going forward, he should get 10. You want more for where he was, but actually he's dropped down drastically on everything else. Fournette, 10 points, is a committee run there at the moment, and he is a little bit banged up. Let's see what it's going to go forward. He is a flex play each week for me. Herbert, another quarterback that's doing exceptionally well, 18 points. Started again in the swing of things now. Now he's got his full committee of wide receivers. And Singleton, only 4 points. Again, like Cook, what I spoke about earlier, Buffalo running backs are not the main running backs. It is Josh Allen. And they're just not giving it to him, unfortunately. On the bench, anything that could have helped? No. Anything that could have helped win by more? Yes. Juju had a great game going forward. I'm not too sure that will happen, but we'll see. Pacheco, 12 points, very respectable, and going forward I think pretty much the same. So that is the round of all the normal weeks. Now everything matters. It's one game at a time. You lose, you're knocked out. That's pretty much it. So let's have a look at the standings and go forward. I do apologise for the lateness of me getting this video out, because obviously the Thursday night game has happened already. So So we'll see some of the scores respectively in there. We'll start at the top with the bot playing the bottom. They haven't played anything yet, but we got Wanderers and Hitman going forward. Respectable results of the league. Fanatic are 12 and 2, and Hollywood are 6 and 8. Badlands was 8 and 6, and Devil's Brush, which obviously me, 8, 5 and 1. So it's only a draw that's really matching us in there. Badlands has a much better team than me, and I think it has about 20 more points on predicted, but we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that these big players don't have the upside and my players do. So that's pretty much it. You can't wish for anything else. On the others, sick place with Trump getting 7 and 7, and he's going to really struggle when Tampa beat at the moment. And Tampa has 9 and 5. And Chicago 7 and 7, and Dak, who is second, but I think is going to be a good game. See who comes out of that. Is 10 and 4. We'll see with that. And playing for not come last. That's pretty much it. We got Birds, who is 5-9, and Ramsgate, who's 5, 8 and 1. Fortunately, he did not get the result he needed, and it dropped him into the non-winners streak, as it were. And then Oriental Lovers 12 and 4, and Cleveland Steamers 4 and 10. And that is everything. Hope you got in the playoffs. Hope you do well. It's tough. Playoffs are tough. Every team is struggling when it should be doing well, and players are all coming out all over the place when you expect them not to. So anything can happen. Wish you the best of luck. Hope you enjoyed this. Please like, subscribe, all of that jazz, and happy hobbying and everything else. Bye for now.